I stood by the festive table, holding a cake for my son, when his wife Emma, with a smile more venomous than a snake's, called me a plague that ruined their lives. The guests froze, and I felt my heart crack. She forgot she lives in a house bought with my money. Her words were the spark that ignited a fire in me. I won't forgive. I'll put her in her place, and let her feel what true defeat means. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The house glowed under strings of fairy lights, their soft hum mocking the knot in my chest. I stood in the doorway of David and Emma's sprawling living room, clutching a gift bag in one hand and a homemade cake in the other. The air smelled of expensive wine and jasmine perfume, but beneath it lingered something sharper, tension, coiled like a snake. Guests milled around the long oak table, their laughter too loud, their smiles too polished. David's 38th birthday party was in full swing, and I, his mother, felt like an intruder in the home I'd bought with my own sweat. I adjusted the gift bag, its tissue paper crinkling like my resolve. The cake, chocolate with raspberries, David's favorite since he was 6, wobbled slightly as I stepped forward. Emma, radiant in a silk dress that caught the light like a blade, stood near the table, whispering to a friend. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp and cold, before she turned away. I swallowed the sting and forced a smile. This was David's night. I wouldn't let her ruin it. "Martha, you made it." A guest, some colleague of David's, waved me over. His cheer felt hollow, but I nodded, setting the cake on the table. The room buzzed with chatter, forks clinking against plates, a jazz playlist drifting from hidden speakers. I scanned for David. He was by the fireplace, phone in hand, his broad shoulders slouched in that familiar way that made my heart ache. He hadn't looked up when I arrived. I smoothed my cardigan and approached the table, raising my voice just enough. "Everyone, I'd like to say a few words for David." Heads turned, conversations paused. Emma froze mid-sip, her wineglass hovering. I cleared my throat, the gift bag heavy at my side. "David, you've always been my pride. 38 years ago, I held you for the first time, and I knew you'd do great things. This house, this life, it's all for you. Happy birthday, sweetheart." A few guests clapped softly. David glanced up, his smile thin, distracted. He mumbled a "thanks, Mom," then looked back at his phone. My chest tightened, but I pressed on, lifting the gift bag. "I brought something special." "Oh, please, Martha, let's not drag this out." Emma's voice cut through, sharp as glass. She stepped forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Her friend stifled a laugh, and the room seemed to shrink. "We all know you love your little gestures, but let's get to the real toast." She raised her glass, her smile venomous. "To David, the man who deserves better than the plague that's been dragging us down." The word hit like a slap. Plague. Guests froze, their kellias suspended midair. A woman in a red dress coughed, trying to break the silence, but Emma pressed on, her eyes locked on me. "You know, Martha, some people just don't know when to step back. You've suffocated us, ruined what could have been perfect. But tonight's about David, not your burdens." My hands trembled, the gift bag slipping slightly. I set it down, the tissue paper crumpling like my heart. David stood motionless, his eyes on the floor, his phone now a shield. I wanted to scream, to demand why he let her speak to me like that. Instead, I straightened, my voice low but steady. "Emma, I hope you enjoyed the cake. It's the last one I'll bring." A guest, a stranger with kind eyes, tried to change the subject, babbling about the weather. Emma cut her off with a laugh, sharp and dismissive. "Oh, don't bother, Susan. Let's not pretend this isn't awkward." The room swallowed her words, the silence heavier than the jazz. I turned to David, searching for a flicker of defense, but he only shifted his weight, avoiding my gaze. I left the cake on the table, its raspberries bleeding into the frosting. The gift bag dangled from my hand as I walked out, the fairy lights blurring through tears I refused to let fall. The house loomed behind me, its windows glowing like eyes that judged my every step. I'd signed the papers for that house, poured my savings into it, my dreams. And now, it was her stage, her weapon. I slid into my car, the cold leather biting through my coat. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the wheel, the engine's hum drowning out the echo of Emma's voice. Plague. The word burned, but something else sparked beneath it, anger, raw and unfamiliar. I turned on the headlights, the road stretching dark and empty before me. As I drove, a thought flickered, too dangerous to name. It wasn't over. Not yet. The key scratched against the lock before it clicked, the sound too loud in the quiet of my apartment. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of lavender and old books wrapping around me like a worn blanket. My hands shook as I dropped the keys on the hall table, the gift bag still dangling from my wrist, its tissue paper limp and mocking. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a reminder of the hours I'd spent on that damn cake, on this family, on a love that now felt like a lie. I kicked off my shoes and sank into the armchair, the gift bag sliding to the floor. Rain tapped the windows, a steady rhythm that matched the ache in my chest. I stared at a framed photo on the coffee table, David at 10, grinning with a missing tooth, his arms around my neck. My throat tightened. Where was that boy now? The man who'd stood silent tonight, letting Emma carve me open, was a stranger. I reached for the photo but stopped, my fingers hovering. Instead, I grabbed the kettle, filling it with water that sloshed over the edge. I needed something to do, something to keep my hands from shaking. As the kettle hummed, I drifted to the desk, where a stack of papers waited, bills, receipts, memories I couldn't escape. My fingers brushed a faded check stub, the first payment for David and Emma's house. 20 years of overtime, of skipped vacations, of telling myself it was worth it. I'd signed the mortgage papers in a bank that smelled of coffee and ink, my heart swelling when David hugged me, his voice thick with gratitude. "You're the best, Mom." I'd believed him. Fool. I sank back into the chair, the check stub creased in my grip. The kettle whistled, shrill and demanding, but I ignored it. My mind slipped to another memory, David's college graduation, his cap tilted, his laugh echoing as I handed him the keys to his first car. I'd worked double shifts to pay for it, my eyes burning from late nights at the accounting firm. He'd promised to call every week. He didn't. And then came Emma, with her silk dresses and sharp smiles, who thanked me for the house with a nod so cold it could have frosted glass. The photo stared back at me, David's grin a blade. I stood, my movements sharp, and crossed to the bookshelf. Tucked behind a row of novels was a letter from John, my husband, written a year before the cancer took him. His scrawl was faint but firm, "Never let anyone make you small, Martha." I traced the words, my pulse steadying. He'd seen my strength, even when I doubted it. Why had I forgotten? My phone buzzed, a message from a friend, probably Carol, checking if I was okay. I ignored it, my eyes drifting to the check stub again. The house. It was mine, in every way that mattered. I'd built it for them, and they'd turned it into a cage for my pride. Emma's voice echoed, plague, and David's silence cut deeper. I'd given everything, and they'd spat on it. I spilled tea when I poured it, the hot liquid pooling on the counter. I cursed under my breath, wiping it with a rag, the motion grounding me. "You're not weak," I muttered, my voice strange in the quiet. "You're not done." I imagined confronting Emma, her smug smile faltering. I imagined David, his eyes meeting mine, forced to see me. The thought wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. I pulled a notebook from the desk, its pages yellowed from years of neglect. My hand hovered over the first page, the pen heavy. "They think I'm nothing," I wrote, the words jagged. "They're wrong." The rain slowed. A faint patter now, and the clock ticked on, relentless. I closed the notebook, my heart pounding with something new, not pain, but purpose. Tomorrow, I'd find a way. Tomorrow, I'd begin. Morning light slipped through the blinds, painting stripes across my kitchen table. I woke with a heaviness, the echo of last night's humiliation clinging like damp wool. My eyes burned, but I forced myself out of bed, the floor cold against my feet. The mirror caught me as I passed, gray strands framing a face that looked older than 62. Emma's voice sneered in my head, her jab about my age at some dinner months ago. "Martha, you should slow down, let the young ones shine." I squared my shoulders. "Not today." I brewed coffee, the machine gurgling as the smell filled the apartment. The mug warmed my hands, grounding me. I stood by the window, watching rain-soaked streets glisten under a shy January sun. Last night, I'd been a guest in my own sacrifice. Today, I'd be something else. I pulled on a coat, the keys jangling in my pocket, a reminder of the house, of promises broken. I needed air, space to think. The park was a short walk, its paths dusted with snow that crunched under my boots. Families dotted the landscape, their laughter sharp against the quiet. A couple, older than me, walked hand in hand, their ease a pang in my chest. I'd dreamed of that once, with John, with David. Now, I was alone, but not helpless. I sat on a bench, my breath visible in the chill, and let the memory surface. David, begging for a car at 20, swearing he'd pay me back. "You're my rock, Mom." Lies, or maybe just weakness. A child ran past, chasing a snowball, and I saw David at 5, his mittens soaked as we built a snowman. The memory stung, but it also steadied me. I wasn't here to mourn. I was here to fight. Emma's message blinked on my phone, "Sorry, got carried away," but I deleted it, my thumb steady. Her words were a trap, not an apology. David's silence was worse. I wouldn't beg for their scraps. I wandered to a kiosk near the park's edge, its shelf stuffed with notebooks and pens. A new journal caught my eye, its cover a clean, unmarred blue. "Nice choice," the vendor said, his smile crinkling his eyes. "New notebook, new possibilities." I nodded, handing over a crumpled bill. He was right. This was a beginning. The walk home felt lighter, the snow's crunch a rhythm to my thoughts. I passed a cafe, its window steamed, and imagined Emma there, flaunting her status, oblivious to the storm I'd bring. Back in my apartment, I set the journal on the table, its blue cover stark against the clutter of bills and photos. I opened it, the pages crisp, and picked up a pen. "I'll find their secrets," I wrote, the words deliberate. "I'll make them see." The coffee was cold now, but I didn't care. I leaned back, the keys still in my pocket, heavy with meaning. The house, the lies, the betrayal, they'd built their lives on my bones. But I wasn't buried yet. I closed the journal, my pulse steady, and let the thoughts settle. This was only the start. The cafe buzzed with the clink of mugs and the murmur of voices, a warm cocoon against the January chill outside. I sat at a corner table, the steam from my latte curling upward like a question mark. My phone lay open to Emma's social media, her latest post a glossy selfie in a restaurant I'd never afford. The caption crowed about living the dream, but the comments hinted at cracks, someone asking, "How do you pay for all this?" I smirked, my finger hovering over the screen. She was a house of cards, and I was learning where to push. I twirled the house key in my pocket, its edges worn from years of use. That key had opened David and Emma's front door countless times, back when I thought it was my home, too. Now, it felt like a weapon, a reminder of the power I still held. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me, and scanned the cafe. Wooden tables gleamed under soft lights, and the smell of fresh croissants hung in the air. I'd come here to think, to plan, but my thoughts kept circling back to Emma's venom and David's silence. "You look like you're plotting a heist," a voice said, sharp but warm. I glanced up to see a woman about my age. Her gray hair pulled into a loose bun, her eyes twinkling with mischief. She held a coffee and a newspaper, her posture relaxed but commanding. "Mind if I join you?" "I'm Elaine." I hesitated, then nodded, sliding my phone aside. "Martha. And maybe I am plotting. Nothing illegal, though." My voice was lighter than I felt, and she laughed, settling into the chair across from me. Her presence was like a spark, and I realized how much I'd missed talking to someone who didn't judge. "Family trouble?" Elaine asked, her tone gentle but probing. She folded the newspaper, her fingers precise. I've seen that look before. Usually comes with a story. I tightened my grip on the key, the metal biting into my palm. My son's wife called me a plague. In front of everyone. My son just stood there. The words spilled out, raw and heavy. They live in a house I paid for, and they treat me like I'm nothing. Elaine's eyes narrowed, but her smile stayed. That's a special kind of betrayal. I know it well, my sister pulled something similar years ago. Took my help, then tossed me aside. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. People like that? They're weak. They build their lives on others' backs, and they crumble when the support's gone. I nodded, my pulse quickening. Emma, she's obsessed with looking perfect. Posts every new bag, every dinner. But I know they're in debt. David barely works. They're living off me. I tapped my phone, showing her Emma's profile. This is her. All shine, no substance. Elaine scanned the screen, her lips curling. Oh, she's a classic. Loves the spotlight, hates the work. And your son? David's, spineless. The word hurt, but it was true. He lets her run everything. Always has. Then you've got leverage, Elaine said, her voice crisp. I used to be a lawyer, family law, mostly. People like Emma and David? Their weaknesses are written in their bank accounts and their egos. Start with the money. Check the house papers, too. You might still be on the title. My heart skipped. The house. I'd signed the mortgage, but I hadn't thought about ownership in years. I have a key, I said, pulling it from my pocket. It glinted under the cafe's lights, a small, defiant thing. And documents at home. Good. Elaine grinned, raising her coffee. That's your way in. Cut the cash flow, watch them squirm. Emma's type can't handle losing face. And if you're on the deed, you've got more power than they think. A drop of coffee spilled as I set my mug down, the dark stain spreading on the napkin. I wiped it away, my movements deliberate. Order. Control. That's what I needed. How do I start? I asked, my voice steadier now. Dig into their finances, Elaine said. Bank statements, credit card bills. If Emma's splashing cash online, there's a trail. And talk to a lawyer about the house. I can help, if you want. I'm retired, but I'm not dead. She winked, and I laughed, the sound surprising me. We talked for an hour, her wit slicing through my fog. She told me about her sister's betrayal, how she'd fought back by exposing lies, not with screams but with paperwork. I told her about the birthday party, the cake, the gift bag I'd taken back. By the time we parted, I had her number and a spark of hope. That evening, in my apartment, the lamp cast shadows across my desk. I opened my journal, the blue cover still crisp, and wrote, "Money's their weakness. Tomorrow, I stop it." The key lay beside the journal, its weight a promise. I closed the book, my pulse thrumming. The game was on. The front door of David and Emma's house creaked as I pushed it open, the sound sharp against the evening's quiet. The living room smelled of stale wine and takeout, a far cry from the polished glow of the birthday party. Dirty dishes cluttered the counter, and empty bottles lined the coffee table. I stood in the entryway, my purse clutched tight, the weight of my decision steadying me. Tonight, I'd draw the line. Emma lounged on the couch, her phone glowing in her hand, a new gold watch glinting on her wrist. David slouched beside her, his eyes on the TV. Neither looked up until I cleared my throat. We need to talk, I said, my voice calm but firm. Like a blade sheathed for now. Emma's head snapped up, her lips curling. Martha? You didn't call. She set her phone down, the motion deliberate, her nails catching the light. What's this about? David muted the TV, his shoulders hunching. Mom, it's late. It won't take long. I stepped forward, my boots soft on the hardwood. My eyes caught a stack of plates on the dining table, my plates, bought a decade ago when I thought this house would be our legacy. The sight twisted something in me, but I pressed on. I'm done paying your bills. No more checks, no more loans. I have my own expenses now. Emma laughed, sharp and brittle. You're joking. After everything we've done for you? She stood, her heels clicking as she paced. You can't just cut us off. You owe us. Oh, you? My voice stayed even, but my grip on my purse tightened. I paid for this house. Every brick, every window. You've given me nothing but insults. Her face flushed, her watch flashing as she gestured. We took you in. Let you play grandma, feel useful. And now you're pulling this? You're selfish, Martha. Greedy. David shifted, his phone now a lifeline. Mom, let's not fight. We can work this out. His voice was weak, his eyes darting to Emma. I wanted to shake him, to demand the boy who'd hugged me over house keys. Instead, I saw a man hiding behind his wife's rage. There's nothing to work out, I said, my gaze locked on Emma. You've lived off me long enough. Figure it out yourselves. Emma stopped pacing, her hands on her hips. You think you can ruin us? We'll manage without your scraps. But her voice cracked, and her eyes flicked to the bottles, the dishes, the life she couldn't afford. Panic lurked beneath her defiance, and I savored it. David stood, his hands raised. Mom, please. We're family. Don't do this. His fingers trembled, and I saw the truth, he was scared. Not of me, but of her, of the life they'd built on my dime. I turned to leave, my eyes catching a framed photo on the wall. Our family, years ago, me standing to the side while Emma beamed center stage. The ache returned, but I pushed it down. Good luck, I said, my voice cold. You'll need it. Emma hurled a napkin at the table, the fabric fluttering uselessly. Get out, she snapped, but her bravado was fraying. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, the plates and the photo burned into my mind. In my car, the leather seats were cold, the air thick with the scent of old coffee. I turned on the headlights, the beam cutting through the dark. Emma's panic, David's weakness, they were real, tangible. I'd struck the first blow, and it felt good. But as I drove, the road stretching before me, I knew they'd fight back. My hands tightened on the wheel. Let them try. I was just getting started. Sunlight streamed through the windows of David and Emma's house, but it only highlighted the chaos. Cardboard delivery boxes littered the floor, some torn open, others stacked haphazardly. The air smelled of burnt toast and desperation. I stood in the living room, my coat still on, the old house contract tucked in my purse like a hidden blade. I'd come to talk, or so I'd said. Really, I wanted to see how deep my last move had cut. Emma stormed in from the kitchen, her hair pulled back, her eyes wild. You've got some nerve, showing up after that stunt, she spat, tossing a fashion magazine onto the coffee table. It landed with a thud, pages splaying. You think you can starve us out? You're pathetic. I stayed still, my voice low. I'm not here to fight, Emma. I just want to know you're managing. A lie, but a good one. I watched her pace, her new necklace swinging, a purchase she couldn't justify now. Managing? She laughed, the sound jagged. You've ruined everything. We're family, Martha, and you're treating us like enemies. You're the one who's wrong here. Her hand shook as she grabbed a wine bottle from the counter, empty, and set it down hard. David appeared in the doorway, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red. Mom, why are you doing this? His voice was soft, pleading, but it grated. He'd chosen her side, again. We can't keep up without your help. You know that. Do I? I met his gaze. Searching for the sun I'd raised. You've had years to stand on your own. I gave you this house, David. And you let her call me a plague. Emma spun toward me, her face contorted. Don't twist this. You're greedy, hoarding your money while we struggle. We'll get a lawyer, Martha. This house is ours. You can't take it. Her threat hung in the air, brittle but sharp. I smiled, just enough to unnerve her. Get a lawyer. See how that goes. The contract in my purse felt heavier, its pages a shield. Elaine's words echoed, check the title. I hadn't yet, but Emma's panic told me I was close to something big. David stepped forward, his hands raised. Let's calm down. We don't need lawyers. Mom, just help us out, one more time. Please. His voice cracked, and I saw the fear in his eyes, not for me, but for the life slipping through his fingers. I shook my head, my resolve iron. You made your choice. Live with it. I turned to leave, my eyes catching a new painting on the wall, gaudy, expensive, Emma's taste. My plates were gone, replaced by sleek new ones. The house was erasing me, but I wasn't done fighting. Emma's voice chased me. This isn't over, Martha. The door slammed behind me, the sound final. That evening, I sat in Elaine's office, a cramped space lined with bookshelves and the faint smell of ink. Papers cluttered her desk, and a single lamp cast a warm glow. Elaine leaned back in her chair, a pen tapping against her palm. They're rattled, she said, her voice crisp. Emma's threats are noise. But that house, your name's still on the deed, isn't it? I pulled the contract from my purse, its edges worn. I think so. I signed the mortgage, but we never transferred it fully. My heart raced as I handed it over. Can we use this? Elaine's eyes gleamed as she scanned the pages. Oh, we can do more than use it. If you're a co-owner, you've got rights. We could force a sale, tie them up in court. Or, she paused, her smile sly. We could play dirtier. I've got an idea, but it's risky. You in? I nodded, my pulse steady. The contract lay between us, a map to their downfall. I folded it carefully, tucking it back into my purse. Back home, I spread it on my table, the lamp's light catching the ink. This was my leverage, my fight. And I was ready for more. The cafe glowed with amber light, its walls humming with soft jazz and the clatter of cups. I sat across from Elaine, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, its warmth seeping into my palms. The table between us was a battlefield of papers, notes, a copy of the house contract, and a legal pad where Elaine scribbled with a pen that clicked rhythmically. Outside, Seattle's February dusk pressed against the windows, but in here, I felt a spark of control, like I was finally holding the reins. Elaine leaned forward, her eyes sharp behind her glasses. You're on the deed, Martha. That's your ace. She tapped the contract, her nail underlining my name next to David's. You co-own the house. They can't push you out, no matter how loud Emma screams. I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of the pen I'd used to sign that contract years ago. It lay on the table, a relic of my sacrifice, now a weapon. So, what's the play? I asked, my voice steady but low, like I was afraid the plan might slip away if I spoke too loudly. Elaine grinned, her wit cutting through the tension. We start with a warning shot. A letter, official, on my old firm's letterhead. It'll remind them you have rights. No demands yet, just enough to make them sweat. She scribbled a note, her pen scratching. Emma's all about image. Hit her where it hurts, her pride. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. And David? He's not like her. He'll beg, not fight. The thought of my son, his pleading eyes, twisted something in me, but I pushed it down. He'd chosen Emma. He'd chosen this. David's your leverage, Elaine said, her voice softening. He's weak, Martha. He'll crack under pressure. I've seen it before, my sister was the same. Took my money, my time, then turned on me. I fought back with paper, not fists. She paused, her gaze distant. You're not alone in this. I'm with you. Her words landed like a lifeline. I met her eyes, seeing not just an ally but a friend. "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. "I haven't had someone in my corner for a while." She waved it off, but her smile was warm. "Don't get sappy on me. We've got work to do." She slid a draft of the letter across the table. "This says you're reviewing your ownership options. It's vague but legal. They'll panic, start making mistakes." I scanned the page, the words crisp and commanding. Co-owner, property rights, potential actions. My pulse quickened. I imagined Emma's face, her smugness crumbling as she read it. David's, too, his hands trembling. The cafe's jazz swelled, a trumpet note hanging in the air like a promise. "What if they call a lawyer?" I asked, setting the letter down. A couple at the next table argued in hushed tones, their voices a reminder of the fights I'd faced alone. Elaine smirked. "Let them. I buried better lawyers in fine print. Besides, they're broke. They can't afford a good one." She leaned back, her pen tapping. "This is about control, Martha. You're taking it back, one step at a time." I nodded, my fingers brushing the contract. The pen beside it gleamed under the cafe's lights, a symbol of the power I'd forgotten I had. I'd signed away so much for them, but not everything. Not yet. Later, in my apartment, the quiet was heavy, broken only by the tick of the clock. Papers littered my desk, notes from Elaine, the contract, the letter. I sat with a glass of water, the draft letter open before me. My phone blinked with a message from David, "Can we talk?" But I ignored it, my focus on the words. Reviewing ownership. I imagined Emma's hands shaking as she read them, her perfect world cracking. The pen lay nearby, its weight a reminder of the years I'd poured into that house. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers, and sealed the letter in an envelope. My heart beat in time with the jazz still echoing in my head. This was just the beginning. The restaurant shimmered with wealth, crystal chandeliers casting prisms on white tablecloths, the air thick with the scent of truffle oil and expensive perfume. I stood near the entrance, my black dress simple but sharp, the house contract folded in my purse like a loaded gun. Emma's laughter rang out from the center of the room, where she held court at a long table, her friends hanging on her every word. She'd invited me to this party, a charity event, she'd called it, though it was just another stage for her ego. I'd come for a different reason. I moved through the crowd, my heels soft on the polished floor, the contract's weight steadying me. Emma's voice carried, bright and brittle. "Our house is our sanctuary," she said, raising a glass of champagne. "We built it from nothing, David and I, hard work, you know?" Her friends nodded, their smiles practiced. I caught a woman's eye, her expression flickering with doubt. She knew the truth, or suspected it. I waited, my hand still, as Emma's toast dragged on. She wore a new dress, emerald green, and a handbag sat at her feet, designer, probably worth my monthly rent. Her lies piled up, each one a brick in the wall I was about to topple. David sat at her side, his smile strained, his eyes avoiding mine. The letter Elaine and I had sent last week had rattled them, but not enough. Tonight, I'd make sure they felt it. "Excuse me," I said, stepping forward, my voice clear but calm. The table fell silent, glasses pausing mid-air. Emma's smile froze, her eyes narrowing. I'd like to add something to Emma's lovely toast. She laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Martha, really? This isn't your moment." Her friends shifted, their curiosity a palpable thing. I smiled, my hand slipping into my purse. "Oh, I think it is." I pulled out the contract, its pages crisp, and held it up. "Emma, you said you built this house. Funny, because my name's on the deed. I paid for every wall, every window. You didn't build it. You just live in it." The room seemed to shrink, the chandelier's light too bright. A woman gasped, another whispered. Emma's face drained of color, her glass trembling. That's not true," she stammered, standing. "This is our home." "You're lying." "Am I?" I set the contract on the table, its pages fanning out like a challenge. Check the records. I'm co-owner. Always have been. My voice was steady, each word a blade. You've been living on my dime, Emma. And lying about it. Her friends stared, some leaning away, others murmuring. A man coughed, trying to break the tension, but it was too late. Emma's hand shook as she grabbed a napkin, crumpling it. You're embarrassing yourself, Martha, she snapped, but her voice cracked. Get out. I didn't move. I'm not the one embarrassed. I turned to the crowd, my gaze sweeping the table. Ask her how she affords those bags, those dinners. Ask her who's been paying. I paused, letting the silence choke her. David stood, his chair scraping. Mom, stop. His voice was weak, his eyes on the floor. The pain of his betrayal stung, but I held my ground. This wasn't just about Emma. It was about him, too. I left the contract on the table and walked out, the restaurant's noise fading behind me. In my car, the leather seats were cold, the engines hum a low growl. I gripped the wheel, the contract's weight gone but its power lingering. Emma's face, pale, broken, flashed in my mind, but so did David's silence. I'd toppled her, but he was next. The road stretched dark before me, and I pressed the gas, the headlights carving a path to what came next. The park was quiet, its bare trees stark against a gray February sky. Snow dusted the ground, crunching under my boots as I stood by a bench, the house key cold in my pocket. I'd asked David to meet me here, away from Emma, away from the house that loomed over us both. My breath clouded in the air, each exhale a reminder of the weight I carried, anger, yes, but also grief for the boy I'd lost somewhere along the way. David approached, his coat unbuttoned, his steps hesitant. He looked smaller than I remembered, his shoulders hunched, his eyes red from lack of sleep or shame. Mom, he said, stopping a few feet away. Why here? It's freezing. I needed air, I said, my voice firm but not cruel. And we need to talk. Alone. I pulled the key from my pocket, holding it between us like a barrier. I'm done waiting, David. You owe me years of loans, promises you never kept. Pay me back, or I'll sell the house. His face crumpled, his hands shoving into his pockets. Sell it? Mom, you can't. That's our home. His voice was soft, almost childlike, and for a moment, I saw him at 6, wobbling on a bike as I cheered. The memory cut, but I held steady. It's my home, too, I said, the key glinting in the weak sunlight. My name's on the deed. I paid for it, every cent. You and Emma have taken enough. He paced, his boots scuffing the snow. I know we messed up. Emma, she didn't mean what she said at the party. We're struggling, okay? Without your money, he trailed off, his eyes darting to a dog barking in the distance, its owner tugging the leash. The distraction felt like him, always dodging. Struggling? I stepped closer, my voice low. You've been struggling on my dime for years. You promised to pay me back for the car, the wedding, the repairs. Where's the money, David? He flinched, his hands raised. I'll get it, I swear. Just give me time. Don't do this, Mom. Remember when we used to come here? You pushed me on the swings. His voice cracked, and I knew he was reaching for my heart, not his own. I tightened my grip on the key, its edges biting my palm. Don't, I said, my voice sharp. Don't use our past to dodge this. You're not that boy anymore. You stood there while Emma humiliated me. You let her. He looked away, his jaw tight. I didn't know how to stop her. She's all I have. The words landed like a slap, and I felt the air leave me. All he had. Not me, not anymore. You have a choice, I said, my voice colder now. Pay me back, or lose the house. I'm done carrying you. I turned to leave, the snow crunching under my feet, his silence louder than the wind. "Mom, please," he called, but I didn't stop. The park faded behind me, children's laughter echoing as I passed a group building a snowman. I saw David at 10, his mittens soaked, his grin wide. The ache was there, but so was my resolve. Back in my apartment. The warmth felt fragile, like it could shatter with a single thought. I set a cup of tea on the table, its steam curling upward, and sank into a chair. The key lay beside the cup, its weight a reminder of the line I'd drawn. David's words, "She's all I have," echoed, but so did Elaine's message, blinking on my phone. "Call me. We need to prep." I ignored it for now, my eyes on the tea, its surface rippling. They'd fight back, David and Emma. I knew it. The storm was coming, and I'd be ready. The lawyer's office was a sterile box, all glass and steel, the air sharp with the scent of ink and polished wood. I sat across from Emma, David, and their hired advocate, a man with slicked back hair and a tie too tight for his neck. The contract sat in my purse, its pages a quiet shield against the storm brewing across the table. Emma's eyes burned into me, her fingers drumming on the armrest, while David slouched, his gaze fixed on the floor. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a pulse in the tense silence. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, cleared his throat, his voice oily. "Mrs. Cunningham, my clients claim you're exerting undue pressure, threatening their home. This is coercion, plain and simple." He slid a document toward me, its edges crisp. "We're prepared to challenge your ownership rights. You've overstepped." I kept my hand still, my voice even. "Have I? My name's on the deed. I paid for that house, every nail, every shingle. Your clients have been living off my generosity for years." I met Emma's glare, her lips twitching with barely contained rage. "I'm not the one overstepping." Emma leaned forward, her voice a hiss. "You're destroying our family, Martha. You think you can scare us with your little papers? We'll fight you. This house is ours." Her nails dug into the table, leaving faint scratches. Hargrove touched her arm, a warning, but she shook him off, her necklace glinting like a blade. David shifted, his voice low. "Mom, please. You don't have to do this. Remember when you helped me with my first apartment? We were a team." His eyes flicked up, pleading, but they carried Emma's words, not his own. The manipulation stung, but I'd expected it. I smiled, cold and steady. "A team? You stopped being my team when you let her call me a plague." I pulled the contract from my purse, setting it on the table with a soft thud. "Elaine, my lawyer, has reviewed this. I'm co-owner, legally and undeniably. You want to fight? Go ahead. But you're not fighting me. You're fighting the truth." Hargrove's hand trembled as he reached for his water glass, a drop spilling onto the table. He wiped it quickly, his confidence fraying. "We'll review the documentation," he said, his tone less certain. "But my clients have rights, too. Emotional distress, financial dependency." "Dependency?" I cut in, my voice sharp. "They've depended on me for everything. That ends now." I stood, gathering my purse, the contract still on the table. "You have 2 weeks to respond. Elaine will handle the rest." Emma's chair scraped as she stood, her face flushed. "You're a monster, Martha. You'll regret this." Her voice cracked, betraying her fear. David grabbed her hand, but his eyes stayed on the floor, his silence louder than her screams. I walked out, the office's cold light fading behind me. That evening, I met Elaine at the cafe, its warm glow a balm after the morning's chill. The smell of fresh bread and coffee wrapped around us as we sat by the window, a napkin between us where Elaine sketched a timeline. "They're bluffing," she said, her pen tapping. "Hargrove's a hack. And Emma's panic? That's your win. We're close, Martha." I nodded, sipping my coffee, its bitterness steadying me. "They're scared." "But David," I trailed off, the memory of his pleading eyes cutting deep. "He's still my son." Elaine's gaze softened. "He made his choice. you're not the villain here. You're the one standing tall. She drew a circle on the napkin, labeling it fund. Our next move's ready. They won't see it coming. I set my cup down, the contract heavy in my purse. Emma's screams, David's silence, they were cracks in their armor. I imagined them reading Elaine's next letter. Their world crumbling. The coffee's warmth lingered in my hands, and I felt the plan sharpen in my mind, a blade poised to strike. The house was a shadow of itself, its once pristine living room cluttered with half-packed boxes and crumpled packing tape. I stood in the doorway, the key to this place, my place, cold in my hand. Sunlight filtered through smudged windows, catching dust motes that danced like ghosts. Emma and David had invited friends to witness their apology, a desperate bid to save face, but the handful of guests shifted uncomfortably, their whispers sharp. I'd come to end this, and they knew it. Emma stood by the fireplace, her silk blouse wrinkled, her hands clasped too tightly. David hovered nearby, his tie loose, his eyes darting to the floor. The air smelled of stale coffee and regret. I stepped forward, my boots loud on the hardwood, and set my purse on the table. The contract was inside, but I wouldn't need it today. My final move was bigger. Martha, Emma began, her voice strained, we want to talk. She glanced at the guests, her smile forced. We've been wrong. We're sorry. The words were hollow, rehearsed, and the guests' murmurs grew louder, skeptical. David nodded, his hands in his pockets. Mom, we didn't mean to hurt you. We got lost. Please, let's fix this. His voice cracked, but his eyes avoided mine, and I saw Emma's influence in every syllable. I let the silence stretch, my gaze sweeping the room. Boxes labeled kitchen and clothes leaned against the wall, a testament to their unraveling life. You're sorry, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. But sorry doesn't erase years of taking me for granted. This house, I gestured to the walls I'd paid for, was my gift to you. And you turned it into a weapon. Emma's face crumpled, her hands unclasping. We know we messed up. But you can't take everything. The house, our life, it's all we have. She stepped toward me, arms outstretched, but I stepped back, my expression stone. Don't, I said, my voice low. You don't get to touch me now. I reached into my purse, not for the contract but for a letter from Elaine. This house is no longer yours to fight for. I've transferred my ownership to a charitable fund. Unless you publicly acknowledge my contribution, every cent, every sacrifice, you'll lose it entirely. The guests gasped, a woman in a red scarf covering her mouth. Emma froze, her eyes wide. You can't, she whispered, her voice breaking. David sank onto the couch, his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The room felt smaller, the air thick with their defeat. I can, I said, setting the letter on the table beside the key. And I have. I turned to the guests, my voice steady. They'll tell you I'm cruel. But ask them who paid for this roof, these walls. Ask them why they're packing. I paused, letting the truth settle. I'm done carrying you. Emma's sob broke the silence, but I didn't look back. I left the key on the table, its metal glinting like a shed chain, and walked out, the door clicking shut behind me. The May air was warm, alive with the scent of blooming lilacs as I reached the park. I sat on a bench, the grass vibrant under a clear sky, children's laughter echoing nearby. A boy ran past, his kite soaring, and I thought of David, of the years I'd given him. Justice was mine, but the ache remained. I pulled out my phone, Elaine's message waiting, you did it. Call me. I smiled but tucked the phone away, watching a pair of old friends laugh on a nearby path. The key was gone, the house a memory. I stood, the breeze carrying the promise of something new, and walked deeper into the park, the world opening before me. The airport buzzed with life, a chaotic symphony of rolling suitcases, muffled announcements, and the sharp scent of coffee from a nearby kiosk. I stood by the check-in counter, my boarding pass crisp in my hand, Elaine beside me, her suitcase a bright red splash against the gray floor. Her grin was infectious, her eyes glinting with the thrill of our escape. "Ready for the adventure, Martha?" she asked, her voice warm over the din. "Paris awaits." "More than ever," I said, my smile real. Unburdened. The weight of the past months, the house, the fights, the betrayal, had lifted, leaving me light, almost dizzy. I adjusted my scarf, the silk soft against my neck, and glanced at the trash bin nearby. The key to David and Emma's house, that symbol of my sacrifice, had landed there with a quiet thud, its metal swallowed by coffee cups and crumpled napkins. I was free. Elaine nudged me, pointing to the kiosk. "Coffee before we board?" "My treat." She winked, already pulling out her wallet. "We're celebrating, after all. You took down a dragon." I laughed, the sound surprising me. "Two, if you count David." The words carried no venom, just truth. We ordered lattes, the barista's quick hands a blur, and sat by a window, planes taxiing outside like birds preparing to soar. A family passed, a boy tugging his mother's hand, and I felt a pang, David's face at that age, all gap-toothed smiles. But the pang faded, replaced by the warmth of Elaine's chatter about French pâtisseries. "You're quiet," she said, sipping her coffee. "Thinking about him?" I nodded, my fingers tracing the rim of my cup. "I'll always love him. But I don't need his love to live." The words felt final, a door closing gently. "The house is with the fund now. They can't touch it. And I'm done looking back." Elaine raised her cup. "To new chapters." We clinked, the moment sealing our bond. She'd been my anchor, my spark, and now my partner in this leap to something new. On the plane, the hum of the engines was a steady lullaby. I sat by the window, clouds stretching below like a blank canvas. My notebook lay open on the tray table, a letter to David half-written in careful script. "I loved you with everything," I wrote, "but I won't let you make me small. I gave you a home, a life, and you threw it back. I'm not angry anymore. I'm moving on." I paused, the pen heavy, and added, "I taught you to read under that old oak, remember? I hope you find your own words someday." The stewardess offered water, her smile kind, and I took it, the cool glass grounding me. I glanced at Elaine, asleep beside me, her glasses slipping down her nose. The sight made me smile, she'd fought for me, laughed with me, and now we were here, chasing a horizon I'd never dared imagine. The fund was set, the house a gift to others who'd build better lives. I'd kept my dignity, my strength, and found a friend who saw me whole. I closed the notebook, the letter unfinished but complete in its way. The clouds parted, sunlight spilling through, and I leaned back, the plane carrying me forward. A billboard in the airport had caught my eye earlier, "Give back, life forward," and it felt like a sign. I'd given back, and now, I was living. The sky stretched endless, and I was ready for whatever came next. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.